All right, diving in today with David Icke. You know, the reptilian overlord guy.
Yeah, you gotta admit, his theories are out there.
They are, but, the thing is he's got tons of followers, best-selling books, lectures sell out like crazy.
And that's what's wild. His audience is all over the place.
Mm.
I mean, you see hardcore conspiracy folks, but then there's, like, New Agers, too.
It really is like this cultural phenomenon, right?
Right.
So, look, we're not here to say if he's right or wrong.
No, definitely not.
We're more trying to get why his ideas are so popular.
Yeah, and what they tell us about the world we're living in.
Exactly. To really get it, gotta understand Icke himself a bit. He had a pretty different life before all this.
Right. I mean, BBC's sports guy?
Yeah.
Spokesperson for the UK Green Party, even?
Yeah.
That's a heck of a turnaround.
You don't go from talking soccer to, shape-shifting reptilians overnight. So when did this whole reptilian thing take off?
Well, it was kind of gradual. The late 80s is when things started picking up. He was pulling from, like, ancient astronaut theories and New Age stuff.
Okay, so a mix of things.
Yeah. Oh, that's what led him to his Reptoid hypothesis. That's what it's called.
The Reptoid hypothesis. All right, break it down for us. What's the main idea?
So basically, he thinks these reptilian aliens, the Anunnaki, are running the world behind the scenes,
Okay.
controlling governments,
Real.
calling the shots on, like, everything.
Wow.
He even names names. Says some people we know are part of this reptilian lineage.
Hold on, so not just like a general evil concept. He's saying actual lizard people disguised as what, like world leaders?
Pretty much.
Yeah.
And to Icke, it's not even just about, power or politics.
What is it about then?
He thinks humans were made by these Anunnaki as slaves
Slaves.
to mine this stuff called monoatomic gold.
Monoatomic gold. What even is that?
Well, he thinks it boosts psychic powers, and the reptilians, they need it for, let's say, self-improvement.
Okay, this is getting wilder by the minute. And what about these Aryan superhybrids I've heard about? What are those?
That's how he links the reptilians to power structures
Oh.
here on Earth. Anunnaki mixed with another alien race, and boom, hybrid ruling class, the Aryan superhybrids.
Gotcha.
And they inherited, reptilian traits, including shapeshifting.
So he's saying some politicians, royalty celebrities, they're actually these shape-shifting hybrids.
That's what he's saying.
That's a lot to take in.
Right. But remember, we're not just listing out his claims. We're trying to get why people buy into it. And that's where his ideas about modern society come in.
Right, because even if you don't believe the reptilian thing, he's talking about something people are worried about. Who really has the power?
Exactly. He says we're being controlled by the media, by tech, institutions, you name it.
And it's the reptilians behind it all.
According to him, yeah.
Yeah.
It's a story that makes sense to people who feel like they have no power or just fed up with how the world works.
So it's more than space lizards. It's about control, manipulation, not trusting authority. And with all the information overload we have, the political spin, it's not hard to see why some people might find that appealing.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's what makes Icke so interesting to study. He's mixed these old alien myths, conspiracy theories, and social commentary into something that speaks to a very real feeling of unease about the world.
It's like he's holding up this, distorted mirror to our anxieties. It's fantastical, but somehow it's compelling, too. But how does the average person fit into all this? Are we all just, pawns in this reptilian game?
That's where his mind control and media stuff come in.
Yeah.
He says reptilians use those to keep us distracted,
Okay.
divided, basically just going along with everything. He calls humans sheeple a lot,
Sheeple.
like blindly following the crowd.
So it's not just that the world is being controlled, but that our thoughts, even how we see things, is being manipulated, too.
You got it. Icke thinks everything, from the news to the movies we watch, it's all designed to make us afraid or apathetic or just keep us in the dark.
That's kind of scary, honestly. To think we might not have as much control over our own minds as we think we do. But let's step back for a second. Look at the bigger picture. What are some of the main themes here, even if we ignore the whole literal reptilian part?
One big one is the idea of hidden knowledge.
Like, there's a secret truth out there, but it's being kept from us.
Yeah, that's a common thing in conspiracy theories.
Makes sense.
And it taps into this really basic human desire to understand why things happen the way they do.
We all want answers, right? We're looking for an explanation for why the world is the way it is.
Absolutely. And sometimes those answers, well, they come from unexpected places.
Oh, hey. What else?
Not trusting authority is another big one. The idea that the people in charge, they're not who they seem.
That could come from personal experiences or historical stuff or just a feeling that something's not right, you know?
Exactly. And with all the information, spin, propaganda out there, it's easy to see how that distrust just grows and grows. But here's my question. If this is all about control and manipulation, what's a key solution? Is there any way to break free from these reptilian overlords?
Yeah.
Well, that's where this idea of like a personal awakening comes in. He thinks the way out is through consciousness, like everyone waking up.
Mm. Okay. So not exactly fighting back, more like meditating our way to freedom.
Yeah.
But how does that actually work if these reptilians are so powerful? Can just changing our minds really do anything?
So he says they feed off our fear, negativity, us just going along with it.
Okay.
By becoming more aware, choosing love instead of fear, we cut off their power source.
So it's like this cosmic tug of war. We pull towards love, they pull towards fear. Whoever's stronger wins.
You could think of it that way, but this is where it gets kind of tricky. He also says we need to love even the people doing the oppressing, see the reptilian in ourselves.
Wait, love the reptilians? The ones controlling everything, manipulating us? That seems pretty forgiving.
It's a tough one, for sure. But he says by seeing that reptilian side as part of our own shadow selves, we can start to heal the division inside us and in the world, too.
So it's not about fighting them, but like accepting them as part of the whole thing. That's a different way of looking at enemies, that's for sure.
It is. And this is where his ideas start to overlap with other philosophies and spiritual stuff, especially those that are all about oneness and how everything's connected.
Right, that we're all part of this big cosmic web, even the parts we don't like. But before we go too far down that road, let's bring this back to reality for a sec.
Definitely. I mean, it's important to say, Icke's theories, they've gotten a lot of pushback. Lots of academics, they call it pseudoscience, say there's no evidence and that it could even be harmful, generalizing about whole groups of people.
Right, calling powerful people reptilians. That could easily lead to stereotypes and prejudice and distract from real problems that need solving.
Absolutely, that's a valid point. And critics also say his whole approach is kind of contradictory. He's built this whole platform using the media, but he says the media is controlled by the reptilians.
So he's using the system to fight the system. Seems kind of ironic.
It does. And some people say that focusing on personal awakening as the solution to everything ignores, the bigger systems that cause oppression and inequality, like saying, just be nicer and it'll all be fine, without actually dealing with the power structures that are the real problem.
Yeah, changing how we think is important, but it doesn't magically fix injustice or get rid of the things causing it.
Exactly. That's why we got to look at Icke stuff critically, see what's useful, but also what's potentially problematic.
So even if we don't buy the whole reptilian overlord thing, is there anything we can learn from his ideas? Anything valuable?
I think so. He makes us think about power, control, what's real. He encourages us to question what we're told.
Not just take things at face value.
Right. Look at where information comes from and be aware of manipulation, even when it seems harmless.
So it's like a workout for our critical thinking skills. Even if we don't believe in reptilians, we can still use that same skepticism in everyday life.
Exactly. He also talks about individual agency, the idea that we have power to choose what we think and believe, even when it feels like there are these huge forces controlling everything.
Like realizing we're not just victims, we have a role to play in creating our own reality.
Right. And even if you don't agree with everything he says, I think that message of taking responsibility for ourselves, for our own growth, that's important.
Okay, so maybe there's more to Icke than just conspiracy theories. But what about his whole utopian vision? He talks about a future where humans are beyond their limits and connect through love and understanding. Is that just wishful thinking, or is there something more to it?
Yeah, it's weird, right? All this reptilian stuff, but then he's talking about love and understanding, almost like they don't go together. How can you say love is the answer when you think these beings are, messing with us?
I know, right? Seems like a total contradiction.
It's definitely this, tension in his whole thing. But I think it shows, a deeper desire in his philosophy.
Okay, what do you mean?
He wants a world that's better than what we have now,
Mm.
without all the limits and fighting and stuff.
Right. He's pointing to something different, something more peaceful.
Exactly. And this is where he gets into post-humanism.
Posthumanism.
Yeah, it's this idea that we need to move past the old ways of thinking about what being human even means.
Okay.
And he kind of blurs the lines between humans and animals as we're all connected in this, web of existence.
So even if we don't believe in the reptilians literally, he's making a philosophical point about expanding our consciousness and how we fit into the universe.
Exactly. He's pushing us to think about how identity isn't fixed, how everything's connected, and how we can go beyond our limits. And this connects to a lot of what people are talking about today, like environmentalism, animal rights, even spirituality.
It's like he's saying, hey, we're not just individuals fighting over stuff. We're part of something way bigger, and we need a new way of relating to each other and the world.
Right. And this vision, even if it seems idealistic, it gives us a glimpse of a different way to be, one where compassion and cooperation are more important, and we recognize our shared humanity, or maybe even like our shared existence that goes beyond just humans.
I find it interesting that even though Icke's stuff can be really controversial, some of these themes, they speak to people who might not agree with his wilder ideas.
Yeah, I think it shows how powerful these basic human desires are.
Mm.
You know, wanting connection, meaning a world that makes sense. And Icke taps into that, even if people disagree with how he gets there.
So, wrapping up this deep dive into David Icke, what's the main takeaway? What can we learn, even if we're not on board with the reptilian overlords and all that?
Well, one thing is, critical thinking is crucial. Icke, whether you like him or not, makes us question what we hear, look at who's saying it, and realize that manipulation is everywhere.
Don't just take things at face value, right? Dig deeper, ask questions, figure things out for yourself.
Exactly. And that's super important these days, with information coming at us from all directions.
True.
Another takeaway is about having agency, being in control. Icke emphasizes that we can choose what we think and believe, even when it seems like everything's out of our hands.
It's like recognizing that we're not just helpless, we can actually shape our own reality.
Right. And even if his way of doing things isn't for everyone, that message of taking responsibility for our lives, for how we grow, that's powerful.
I think you're right. And finally, even with all the controversy, Icke reminds us that imagination and hope are important. He gives us this vision, even if it's strange, of a world that's better than what we have now.
Yeah, even if it seems unrealistic, it shows that we can dream, we can imagine a better future, and we can work towards it, even in small steps.
So, leaving this deep dive, maybe the biggest lesson is this. Keep asking questions, keep exploring, keep challenging what you think you know, and never stop imagining what's possible. The world's a complicated, interesting place, and even the weirdest journeys can teach us something valuable.